"Oh, sir, what happened?" He said, "I fell on it."
Gobbledy gobbledy god gobble gobble. Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur every single Wednesday morning who's turning wild ideas into wild growth. I'm your host, Max Branstetter, founder and podcast producer at Max Podcasting. And you can email me at max@maxpodcasting.com to save time with your high-quality podcast. This is the 7th annual Thanksgiving family episode. It is one of my favorite episodes. Let's just say it is my favorite episode to do every single year, a tradition that goes back to 2018 when the podcast started and I interviewed my dad. And in this edition are very, 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 very repeated. Special guest is my brother, Dr. Andrew Branstetter. He is an ER doctor in New York, and this interview took place in person, extra special as always. And there's not as much business in this episode as there's usually, but it's an amazing story of an amazing person and an amazing ER doctor and in the making of an ER doctor from day one and beyond. It is AB. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving if you celebrate, and if not, have a wonderful day. And if you're listening to this at a random time of the year, have a wonderful day as well. And enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with Dr. Andrew Branstetter, which I think I just said is Andu. The 7th annual guest for the 7th annual Thanksgiving family edition of the Wild Business Growth Podcast. Always one of the most special episodes of the year. The baby, as he's known. Long skinny arms, as he's also known. Mom, Joanne, has a lot of nicknames for him that we've all adopted. But Dr. Drew, thank you so much for joining my brother. Welcome to Hoboken, a.k.a. Broboken today. Sorry, that's incredibly corny. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I held out as long as I could, but lucky number 7 seems like a good time. So excited to be here.
That's what she said. And so welcome. I don't even know. But no, this has been one of the most requested potential guests of all time. And for a while, we thought that maybe you never say yes to this. So thank you for saying yes to doing this in the first place. But really excited to dive into your story. We go way back. I wanted to start off with a section that we've never done before, because in prep for this interview, our mom, Joanne, said that she was really concerned that this interview might make you lose your job and your career. So she sent in a couple questions for you. What's your favorite season? What's your favorite color? I'm just kidding. She was concerned though. No, we're gonna get to all sorts of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll of the ER world. But before that, so when we think of growing up, anybody who knows you now knows that you're tall and skinny, and you weren't always that way. Actually, when we were really, really little, I was the chubby one, and then it kind of turned, and for a bit, you were the chubby one. And then you had like the most impressive growth spurt and skinny spurt I've ever seen. So you went from, I don't know, my height to, what are you now, 6'2"-ish?
Legally
and illegally. And you went from having a little bit of baby weight to being really skinny. I'm just curious from your mindset. This is a hard-hitting one, but from your mindset, like when you went through that like puberty and growth spurt change, did you feel different? Like did that affect how you like viewed yourself or like outlook on life?
Yeah, that's a great question that I don't always think back to. I remember, so it would have been, elementary school, middle school, up until that first year of high school when I was a little bigger. I think it was a combination of, recognizing it, but kind of ignoring it. And puberty was, taking off at that point. I was getting more serious about playing tennis. I wanted to make a more conscious effort to kind of change some things. But also at that age of like 12, 13, you don't have a great grasp on that and how to like set goals and make progress towards a goal. But I definitely like identified it as something I wanted to change, because I think a lot of, for me, like my self-confidence kind of evolved with that transformation, which has, taken years and years to work on. But yeah, I felt like much more positive after that. And, I was 4 or 5 inches taller. I was seeing the world from a different angle.
a rather acute angle on top of everyone.
I don't know that at the time that I felt as big of a change as when looking back at it and like in hindsight and kind of hearing how other people had seen me and viewed me, and how that kind of, that they could see the changes more than I probably noted at the time. So I think then it didn't make as much of a difference, but like now looking back, I can see that it was kind of a big part of kind of transitioning towards adulthood, maturity, kicking things off with that.
Damn, man, you're gonna make me cry. No, the heavy hitter at the gate. I appreciate that, and it's really cool to hear. When I think back around that time that you, like, going through puberty, I remember one of my favorite like memories of you in sports growing up. And we'll talk tennis in a second. Obviously, tennis is awesome, but around that time that you became one of the taller people, we'll call it, you switched from being probably like a guard or forward in basketball to being like the center or like power forward down low in rec league basketball. And so like you were down in the post, Fiji in the post. And I still remember, what was it, the year that you guys won? And of course, Dad was a coach. So many amazing sports memories growing up. But the year that you won, your team won rec league basketball, and you drilled 2 free throws at the end of the game to clinch the win. Cold as ice, stone cold, mother ever. What was that, like 6th grade maybe? 5th grade?
I want to say 6th grade. I think that was, I don't know, our uniform, I think it was blue. I feel like it's a lifetime ago, but
that was tall, skinny Andrew, or tall, getting skinny Andrew.
Yeah, so 6th or maybe even 8th grade. I think those were 2 bank free throws. I think they went off the backboard right in.
It's funny. I don't even remember that part. I just remember you drilled them. I was really nervous. Everybody was nervous. Like, this was literally, at the Solon Rec Center, they used to have, they had 2 basketball courts. And for the championship games, they pulled up the divider in between them and they put the court sideways. So it was like one big court. And so like everyone, it felt like the entire town was watching. And so you got fouled, you need to go hit free throws, and you drilled them. And now, a little teaser to your medical career. But when people ask how you handle like ER and being a doctor and all that stuff, I'm like, even since those free throws, like at an early age, he's been cool as a cucumber. So speaking of excelling at sports, tennis, what is it that drew you to tennis in the first place?
I think what initially drew me to it growing up, our grandparents, Henry and Adele, they were big tennis players their whole lives. And Mom played throughout high school, and it was like their sport. And even in the 60s, 70s, 80s, like their age, they were still playing, maybe just once a week or once a month, but they were still playing. So that kind of like drew me in initially to tennis. But there was just something that was different about it than some other sports, where on one hand, it's very independent and you're playing by yourself and you're kind of in control of a lot of what you do. But at the same time, especially in like high school or just different leagues, it's also a team sport that you're rooting on other people. So it was a nice combination of those things, but something that I thought I could really excel at more than other sports, and something that you can kind of like keep your head down, focus on yourself to get better at the skills. And it's just fun. It's fun to play.
It is. Shout out Henry and Adele. So like they actually, like they played at the Senior Olympics. Like it's pretty crazy how, it really became a lifetime sport for them. And I'm sure it will for you as well. And Dane and I and family love playing it in Florida now too. I remember you like starting to like tennis and then starting to do some tournaments, and, there were some wins and there were some losses. And at a certain point, and I'm sure the growth spurt didn't hurt at this point, but I think by the time you got to high school, like you were like really damn good. Like you were really good tennis. And I'll always think back to sophomore year of high school, you and Liam O'Brien, the Twin Towers, the doubles team, you guys went to state. Some of the most like amazing tennis matches I've ever watched, and obviously it's really cool when it's your brother, but that run, like you're playing in the state championship, like the state championship playoffs in Columbus, not the actual final match, but
far from that.
leading up to it. No, you lost to a really, really good team, but like, what did that run and like winning the region or whatever and getting to compete in states, baby, as you said on Facebook back in the day? What did that mean to you to like, you know, get to kind of the top level of like Ohio high school sports?
Yeah, I mean, it was unexpected in that I think that was my first year on the like varsity team. I had kind of my freshman year, I was on the JV junior varsity, so I was kind of newer on the team. You know, I knew the other players, the other teammates, but I don't think that I was expecting in any way, or most people were expecting us to go to make it to the state tournament, qualify for that. Similar to what you were saying, it's like something with the growth spurt and just like all those hours of private lessons and putting in practice. It's like it started to pay off a bit, which was good, and it was fun. It was really fun at the time. Yeah, we can ignore the actual like match of the state tournament when we got demolished and didn't. I think we won one game.
Damn, New Albany, right?
Yeah, in the whole match, but it was still fun to be there. Like, great to be a part of that. I have a shirt that has my name on it forever, and it was a good experience. Yeah.
And I hint at the Facebook post. I still remember your Facebook status back when everybody made Facebook statuses. You said "States, baby, States," which is like the Vegas baby swingers type thing. So, awesome memories there. The other part I want to hit on from growing up before college, like anybody who knows you knows you're really smart, and I don't think it'd be a surprise for many people to know that like you were a hell of a student. And like I always joke about how like, but it's all serious that like I was a great student and I was always really happy with my grades and test scores and everything. And then Andrew came along and like totally surpassed that to like a next level, like unimaginable. First of all, congrats on a great academic career. But no, but obviously you're really smart. You took school seriously. Where did that come from internally, do you think, to want to achieve, you know, the highest grades and do so well on tests and everything in that ballpark?
It's funny you ask it because I've thought a lot about this, like especially in the last like 5-ish recent future of like, what was it about school and academics and education that made me like want to keep doing well and putting a lot of my time into it and energy. And it's gonna like sound like cheesy, but I think some of it was kind of what you had touched on already of, you know, being a little bigger and I think I had some like self-confidence issues, but then when I got to school and started going through school and different classes and doing well, it was like this positive feedback loop where I was like, oh, I can do this really well and this makes me feel great. And like, this is where I can kind of focus my energy and effort and like kind of own that. And then I guess it kind of just like blows up from there. And like, then once you start doing well and you're like, okay, now I need to do well. And that can have its own issues. But I think it kind of stemmed from there with like adolescence. And then once I started to set my eyes on like a medical school or at least something in like science and math or something in that STEM field, I was like, okay, now it's also important to do well. Like it can make a difference for your future if you're doing better too. So I think that like fed into it maybe in high school, but before that it was a lot of like within myself, kind of like how it made me feel and how I wanted to just keep doing better each time.
So this has become a much deeper interview than I expected, which I love. So let's get to something lighter. Let's talk emergency rooms. Doctors. So you hinted at it like when you started to figure out like, I want to be a doctor, I want to do something, I want to start to go down that path. It's really, really cool. Like, and if you check out your Instagram, you can see this somewhere, but if you look at some of the earliest pictures of us, there's one where we have like the little like toy like medical toolkit thing where like one of us has the little glasses on, like doctor's glasses on, one of us has the oh God, obviously I'm not the doctor here. What's the thing that you like hit the knee in back in the old days?
Oh, like a reflex hammer.
Reflex
There's
hammer.
probably another word for it that I.
Yeah, so there was like one of those. Anyway, it's really cool that obviously I didn't go down that path, but it's really cool to look at that picture and be like, wow, like the younger one here is literally going to grow up to be an ER doctor in New York. Like that's so cool. So lots to unpack there, but still, I guess growing up, even before you started in college at OSU, what is it about the medical field that piqued your interest?
Well, I want to, before I answer that question, you mentioned Instagram. I don't have very many posts on there. That is one of my few posts that I have. This is not an advertisement for my Instagram. I want to clarify.
You're an influencer. You can reveal it.
So what initially drew me to medicine?
Was it the Instagram followers?
To be a medfluencer.
I didn't know that's a term. Wow.
It's a combination of a lot, and I think my initial like taste of it was probably various like TV programs that I would kind of like catch a glimpse of growing up when like mom was watching, because she loves Grey's Anatomy, ER, like a lot. She loves those shows.
By the way, isn't Grey's Anatomy still making new episodes? Like,
yeah,
it's like Survivor.
It is. It's still going. But there was something about it that I would see the like hustle bustle of a hospital in the background on a TV, even if I was like doing homework at the time or eating or whatever I was doing. And I would want to watch, and like I would be engaged in a program, even though I knew nothing about what was actually happening on the show. I think that was the initial like taste of it. Cause we don't have like relatives in medicine up until we were growing up, and, you know, our cousin, but, yeah. So I didn't get that interest in medicine from the family route, which I think a lot of people do. And there was no pressure to ever go into it, but something about it was just really intriguing, and something about learning how our bodies work and how they don't work and how to fix it when they don't work was like pretty interesting to me. Like that Operation game, like that, that was interesting. And I was like, oh, there's a way to fix these things.
And did you always know that you wanted to grow up to be Dana's personal doctor?
That, yes. Years before I knew that Dana existed.
Before we met. Like at one point in that timeline, I guess, did you decide on ER?
That took some time. So I guess like kind of zooming out in the medical field and training program, at least in the US, is, you know, you go to medical school, it's like general. You learn everything. You rotate through all the different months of training and things. And sometime during your third or your early in your fourth year, you have to start applying for residency, the next level of training. And I almost had an oh shit moment, like partway during my third year, because I liked a lot of what I saw. There was something appealing about a lot of the different specialties and floors, and even, you know, as far like going from one end of like pediatrics clinics where you're doing like well baby visits, or on the other hand doing like anesthesia and like surgery, like those, I liked almost all of it. So as I got further along in medical school, I was thinking of a future specialty that could incorporate everything, something that on a day-to-day basis I could potentially be exposed to anything that comes in. And so I think ER was a pretty natural fit when thinking from it that way.
It makes sense when you think about ER, of like you get to, like, if you're someone who's genuinely interested in like anatomy, biology, all the G's, and again, I'm not the doctor, and you think about like the different types of cases that you can experience and how you can help, well, literally like save people. ER seems like a great route. So I don't think anybody was like surprised when they found out that you wanted to go down that path. It was like really cool and really inspiring. When you think about your education, so I don't know how many people, obviously your friends know this, that who go way back, but like I don't know how many people know that you spent 8 years in Columbus at Ohio State. Like that's a long time. And at that point in your life, it's what, a third of your life-ish in CBUS. So you went to undergrad at Ohio State, med school at Ohio State as well. You got a full ride undergrad to Ohio State. What was that like when you, obviously you were hoping you would get it. Our family, that was like a really nice plus, like, any scholarship helps, and this is stuff you couldn't have dreamed of. Can you take us to the moment that you got the phone call saying that you were accepted to that program and were getting a full ride?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was Memphis. We were on I guess that would be spring break of my senior year of high school back in 2012. Mom, Dad, and Aunt Mindy, we were there, and we were near the river, and I remember getting a phone call from some number, like an Ohio area code of some kind, and I picked it up, and it was from Ohio State, like one of the representatives there who ended up being one of my mentors, like during college, offering me this scholarship and this chance to be a part of this biomedical science program. And it was amazing to have the call, but it also, I think at the time, it was unexpected. I didn't know if it was going to happen. And I was looking at other colleges too. It wasn't like Ohio State. I know a lot of people who grew up in Ohio State is their dream school. I think I had at times wanted to get out of Ohio and go to a little smaller university. I was looking at some other places. When I got this offer, I mean, looking in hindsight, it was life-changing. But I think at the time a little part of me was like, all right, I guess I'm going to Ohio State now. in a very like, okay, this is the way it's going to happen way. And now looking back, I'm like, thank God that happened. Like the number of doors that opened, and practically speaking too, for the family and financially, that was a big deal. And paying for school and housing and getting a little extra stipend every semester, like that's amazing. So I'm very fortunate that happened.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's such there's very few people that they give out that scholarship for. And obviously, like, you had an awesome resume. Like, it's not surprised they did it. It's just like the odds of getting something like that are so slim that it was amazing. I still have like excitement from how you and Mom and Dad and we were all so excited when that happened. And yeah, so it turned into 8 awesome years in Columbus. So you had undergrad, or pre-med as they call it, right? And then you had med school there. We can kind of group them together, but like you mentioned, open a lot of doors. What do you mean by that? Like, what was most impactful about that to like where you are today?
I think in general, I had a fantastic like time at Ohio State, and as undergrad was going on, I loved it enough to stay for med school. So I liked Columbus, I liked Ohio State, but with the doors that it opened, I think a lot of that in early college, like early undergrad studies, it was exposing me to different like shadowing meaning like where you are kind of following doctors around in the hospital or observing them like on their day-to-day, to expose me to different options and opportunities like within the medical field. And that was like right there, a 10-minute walk from my dorm freshman year was the hospital. So it was so close that it was like instantly ingrained in my college experience, which I think later, it was like, it was a comfortable place. It was like somewhere that I knew and somewhere that I could really learn a lot about medicine, and a few years later, medical school moving forward.
What was the coolest thing that you got to do as either a pre-med or med student in Columbus?
Oh, it's funny because this is nothing like what I do now on a day-to-day basis at work, but I was it was a cardiothoracic surgery. So like
I was going to guess that.
Heart and lung surgery rotation. And it's some of the most like tiny little exact surgical procedures you can do. But as part of that, they have transplants. So there were heart transplants, lung transplants, sometimes both. And occasionally they would let the medical student go on the private jet plane to the site where you're getting the organs for the transplant and bring them back to Ohio State. So near the end of my rotation, I was able to do one for a lung transplant. So I flew down to Atlanta, and I think my shift that day, quote unquote, ended at like 5 p.m. And I think we got the call like late morning, and they had told me, oh, you're probably not going to get home. I mean, back to Columbus until late night. But I had wanted to go on one so bad because I had some other friends, like colleagues that had done it. And went on to Atlanta. I was seeing different physicians from like 6 different hospitals that were all there, the transplant teams from 6 different places. And then we flew the lungs back to Ohio State, and I was there for the beginning of seeing the actual transplant being done, which was really cool to see.
This is very immature of me, but when you said flew the lungs back, I pictured lungs like with the like little wing like emojis flying through the air. And
no, that's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, you're riding it like a what is it? Not The Land Before Time, The Never Ending Story, that giant dog thing.
I did briefly hold the cooler, but I had to be like in eyesight of one of the transplant like technicians or something. He was like watching me as I did it, but I did hold the cooler, but I had no part in the actual surgery of that. But it was very cool to see. It almost like seems fake, or you see it in shows, but like, no, this happens like day to day around the country, thousands of times.
So, as you very explicitly mentioned, so you flew on a private jet multiple times a day, every single day. that was day in the life for you. But no, if you look forward, making up words here. If you look forward, by the way, we are drinking beer during this, so sorry. If you look beyond Ohio State, next came residency, and that was really, really cool because that's like what brought you out to the East Coast. And obviously, like, we have a lot of family here. Dana and I have been in Hoboken for a while. We were so stoked, like, when we found out that you were moving to the city and you had residency in the city. Can you take us through, like, it's a little bit different than finding out that you got the full ride, but it's like you have that anticipation of, like, where am I going to be, and where, like, helping make a big decision. Where was New York, like, in your level of interest, I guess, before you found out that you'd be coming out here for residency?
I think New York, in my mind, growing up, we would do trips every few years, or, we were doing Thanksgiving in New Jersey with our cousins, and occasionally we would come into Manhattan, into New York City. And every time I was there, I loved it. But that's also in a touristy vacation way.
Yeah, you're like, I want to live in the middle of Times Square.
Yeah, and like the ball drop, that's where I'm gonna live, right there, under that apartment right there.
In my Elmo mascot costume
with the Krispy Kreme store. So, I think there was always positive feelings like about New York City in my mind because of that, and I think I had applied to like 1 or 2 colleges, like in high school, like looking forward to college in New York, and those didn't work out. And then with college and then med school happened, and I'm like, okay, maybe now's the time to go out there. And you were living here for a couple of years at that point. Thankfully you were, because I was able to stay with you, like visit you for sometimes like a week at a time.
Yeah, you did some major couch surfing.
And I did a whole month at a time. That is true.
You stayed. Yeah, you stayed for a month on my couch.
Yeah.
Granted, especially before some shifts, there were some nights that I gave you the bed and I took the couch. Yeah. But that has to be like a record for Branstetter couch surfing.
Yeah. I did like
Dad has another story about a couch, but that's for a separate time.
I did like an audition. Yeah, that like trial month at a hospital in Brooklyn, and I stayed there. But no, the couch was okay. That was a shout out to IKEA.
Shout out IKEA.
Yeah. But I think I was able to kind of see myself, or, envision myself ahead of time, like, could I live here? Is this somewhere that I could live every day, go grocery shopping, go to a coffee shop and do some studying? Like, is this a feasible place to live? Which I still don't have a good answer to that, even though it's my 5th year now. But yeah, it was kind of like, initially it was this dream that I had of like moving here, and then it became more real and more real. And with you being here, it was like, okay, this is actually, you here, the cousins are around here, like, this could work. And then match day, or like the match process of residency, where you're a medical student, you're matching into a residency program. I was like, okay, this could be the chance, like this could be the time to do it. And then COVID happened.
But also you matched in New York.
Yeah.
Like, also important. Yeah, that's, awesome memories. Like, we were in Cleveland with you when you found out and made like a little homemade sign. I matched, and it's also one of your 4 Instagram posts. So thanks for that. But Medfluencer. let's get to modern day. Many years in Columbus in pre-med and med school, then in New York for residency. Now full-time ER doctor in New York. I'm going to call this segment a day in the life because I have so many questions here and it's kind of all over the place, but really it's about learning like what your life is like. And like I've said this on podcasts before, but the type of stuff you do every day and how you literally like save lives and like help people for a living is like always been super inspiring to me. And like, as Dana knows, like anybody, like I'll get stressed about work sometimes, and it always helps to like keep in perspective of like, okay, you know, it's like marketing and like podcasting versus like life or death, you know, like it kind of helps to reframe it. And I think about the same thing with Dana is like teaching our youth, you know, like both you guys really help to keep things in perspective. So that's all. So next segment. No, I'm just kidding. No. So one, thank you. And two, let's get to the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, as I called it. I want to talk scheduling first because as an ER doctor, these days your schedule is much more manageable and you have some off days every now and then, but especially for residency, like pretty crazy gauntlet of a schedule. The biggest thing there is like you become a pro at becoming a half vampire, meaning you can like switch it to from being like a normal person to being a nocturnal person seemingly pretty easily. I don't know, but how would you characterize like the life of, you know, sometimes we got to work nocturnal shifts and I got to get myself adjusted.
Yeah, well, luckily I'm addicted to caffeine, so I can drink coffee.
A doctor with an addiction.
I can drink coffee whenever I need to. And funnily enough, like growing up, I would like love to stay up late. I don't fully remember if we actually had like bedtimes growing up, but I always would like be excited.
We did. You were just too young to remember.
But I would always love like staying up late and watching shows. Like it was always kind of like natural, like easy for me to stay up or be awake longer if I needed to. And I don't know if it was like a FOMO thing where I just didn't want to miss anything that happened like in life. So I would just want to be awake all the time. And I think, well, Dad is a great napper. Yeah. He like makes that a part of his schedule, and like it's good for creativity and so I think the napping thing, like I love to do that as well in terms of like ER schedules, which can be very variable, and there can be flipping between day shifts, night shifts, like switching back pretty quickly, being nocturnal to not nocturnal. I think like kind of the way that I grew up, it kind of like helped make that easier to do. But it is hard. It's tough. You know, I'm 30 now.
Okay. All right.
But I can feel like it's more difficult to transition back from working an overnight shift to quickly switching to a day shift, as opposed to like even 2-3 years ago in residency when we were doing it like once every other week. Like I could, you know, I was pretty good at that.
What's the hardest part of the night? Like if you're working like let's say for example, like a 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., for example, what hour is the most difficult?
I think I have two answers to that. So the first answer is like 6 p.m. before the shift starts, especially for where I work up in the Bronx. I take the subway to go from Manhattan up into the Bronx, and at 6 o'clock, especially on a Friday or a Saturday, that's like most people's weekend. And oftentimes in the spring, summer, early fall, there are Yankees games. And so the Yankees fans are on the train and they're all having a great night. It's the start of their night, and it's the start of my night too, but it's a much different night that I'm about to have. Some night shifts, like on the way to work, it's more of like a mind over matter of like, once I get there, I will be happy and ready to work. But that train going there is tough to see everyone else that's like about to go enjoy their evening in other ways. The second hardest part is probably like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. That's when you're just tired, and like everyone's body gets cold. Even if the air conditioning's not like blasting, you're just like, your body's like, I should be asleep right now. But you mentally know that you have another 3 or 4 hours to work. Those middle of the night hours can be tough, but everyone's going through that together. Like all the staff that's there is doing the same thing.
What's like a trick for like adjusting back and forth when you need to switch between being a normal person and a Count Chocula?
There's a lot of different ways to do this. I don't think that mine is the best solution. I think people who do it like weekly swapping are a little better at it than me. But when I get home from a night shift, I want to, as quickly as possible, start switching back to being like daytime. So I'll usually do a quick, well, not quick, a nap for a few hours, wake up around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 in the afternoon, and plan something later that afternoon so that I have to be awake and I have to leave my house rather than just laying around all day. Because if I'm on my couch, I'm just going to want to sleep the whole day and then I won't be able to sleep that night. So I think it's kind of about strategically planning things to make me stay awake, and one coffee or maybe two. But
sounds like this guy's addicted to caffeine or something. All right, and now the moment we've all been waiting for. Obviously, with HIPAA, we can't reveal like any details, anything like that. Even if you want to think about it this way, these are strictly hypothetical medical cases. But can you share just some of the most like memorable or like shocking medical cases that you've had to work on, or had the pleasure to work on, either or? We can get as unruly as you want.
Yeah, maybe we can build up to the unruly. We'll do like a little softball, and then we can lead up to. No, it's
Sure.
Funny.
So the time the softball was lodged in. No, just kidding.
It's funny because this is like one of the first questions that people ask you when they hear that you're an ER doctor. Probably the same for some other specialties too, like surgery and stuff. But it's like, oh, what's the wildest thing you've seen? And nowadays I've started to, and I've only been doing this a few years. Like it's not like I've been doing it a long time, but I'm already like, oh my God, they asked that question again.
Sorry.
But it's natural. And there is a lot that we see, and a lot that doesn't strike us like working in the ER as like weird or like maybe even funny, that to a normal like lay person is probably like shocking. Like you're like, what? You just deal with that day to day. So it's hard to like narrow things down to specific ones. So I'll try to like give a few stories to cover a few different types of cases of patients and cases. I think everybody's favorite stories are about what are called foreign bodies, quote unquote, which is essentially an object. You could do it like a Mad Lib where it's like, I have a blank in my blank, and pick anything, any object, and choose from a various orifice. And I've probably seen something similar in the last few years.
How do these things find their, it's like these objects have a mind of their own, it seems.
Yeah. There was during residency who said that his stomach was hurting and he needed an x-ray. And we got an x-ray. And we saw a soft drink can of some kind. We went to the patient and said, "Oh, sir, what happened?" He said, "I fell on
it." Gravity's a bitch.
Yeah. So, no judgment. Everyone does their own thing, but it needs to come out. So there are times that patients will try to beat around the bush and not just be honest about things that happen. And sometimes we have to hear, but it can be embarrassing for sure. There was a patient during residency who was very open about what was inside of him. But we ended up getting a CAT scan and a CT scan just to get a better picture anyway. And when I tell you that the object we saw was basically going from his butt to his belly button, probably 10, 12 inches, that was inside.
At least he didn't say, I fell on it.
Yeah.
He owned it.
Yeah. So there is a fair share of like, I can't get this out, help.
By the way, I love how you said, let's start with some softballs and then we'll lead up to it. And then you're like, foreign body, here we go.
But there's a huge range of what we see day to day. And what I see at work, it can range from, I've been coughing for one day, my throat hurts, help, to I'm having a massive heart attack. Like, it's a humongous range. of what you see, and you kind of just have to be prepared for everything. I think something that's like been the trickiest for me to deal with is the quick kind of switching and going from a very acutely ill, complex patient, or some like a death or something like a cardiac arrest, talking to family about that, because that's on us to talk to the family members when it happens and explain to them what happened, and then to within the next few minutes go to seeing someone who might have stubbed their toe. I think it's easy to kind of be like almost ranking in terms of acuity, like emergencies, and reminding yourself that for that person, that patient coming in, like that is an emergency to them. It's tough to remind yourself of that, but that's kind of the name of the game.
You had so many long words in that last sentence. I was just blown away. But the death piece is, I think, shocking for so many lay people, as you said. So many of us who aren't working in ER or the medical field of like let's say a patient dies and it's not your fault, but you were working on it. How do you handle that? And handle that frequently?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think to an extent you do have to, at least in the moment, almost distance yourself a bit from that emotional part related to the patient and the family members, because you don't want that to get in the way of the medical care. And then when we call it like pronouncing a death. So like that's when, we have decided that, we've done all the efforts and it's time to kind of call it, and that's the time of death. It's tricky to go from thinking of the medical management, the medical care, to quickly talking to the family members about it. And I think something that we'll do sometimes is kind of bring the family in to our, what we call it like the trauma bay, like resuscitation room, to see us doing the like care for their family member, because it can help a bit with them processing and seeing that, we've been trying to do stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing besides the nocturnal piece, the biggest thing that is like so different from, everybody else that's in like a lot of audience for this podcast is like in the business world or has a business or is aspiring entrepreneur. And it's, like there's late nights in that space, but there's not often, hopefully, too many full nights. But whatever we're doing doesn't matter nearly as much as like life or death situations and like the ability to save people and solve all their ailments, a wide range, as you talked about. Would you say that you see more like what you would call physical health or like mental health cases?
I don't know if it's like, so working up in Bronx or any New York City hospital, there's a big percentage of mental health related patients in the ER. Or if they don't necessarily come to the ER for that, but they have a background of it, or maybe that's also what they wanted to kind of check in on. It's a huge part of the emergency department, is not just what we would consider like the medical care, but, their social assistance that they might need, financial things, transportation. Like there's just a lot of that comes through the ER. We're also kind of, it's like a safety net for a lot of patients who might have months and months of not being able to see their psychiatrist, or they might not be able to see their primary care doctor for 3 months, but they need their blood pressure medicine refilled, or they need their monthly injection for their depression, or something like that. That initially we might kind of like scoff at or roll our eyes like, oh, why are they coming to the ER for this? But then when you like think about it, it's like sometimes there's no other option. What I think I've come to love about the ER so far is that, we don't turn anybody away. Like every patient that comes can be seen and talked to by a physician. And I think that's different than a lot of fields. But yeah, there's a big chunk related to more mental health things. And sometimes it's things that I can't help with, or we can't always fix everything, but at least we could try to get them in touch with the people that can.
On the flip side of that, what's like a type of case that is like these days is just kind of like really quick to identify and like treat, and then you're like, all right, we're pretty efficient with this.
Yeah, I think the two most like common ones are just in general, it's like chest pain or abdominal pain. So like the most, if you think of someone, if you come with like abdominal pain down low, like appendicitis, something like that, it's just like, it's straightforward. It's where, if you're having pain down in this area, and I'm like, okay, this is probably what it is. And we'll quickly get the IV in, take you over for the CAT scan, and like identify it pretty soon, get you with the surgeon and stuff. But those are probably like the quickest things, or the things that we see often is related to like abdominal issues and just like chest pain, making sure you're not having a heart attack. But if you are having a heart attack, that's also very quickly dealt with. And, I work at a hospital that's like, they call it a cath lab, where they can like deal with the blockages in the heart. And so people can get upstairs within 10, 15 minutes to where they need to be to get that like intervention to save their life. So
we're finally on to the lighter segments. So I know that was just putting you, on the spot like crazy, but we have a couple quicker, lighter, more fun, random, zany, brainy, segments to wrap up here. The first one's kind of a rite of passage. The unusual. So this is pet peeves, quirks, weird talents. This isn't about you in like the medical field. This could, it could be if you want to tie it to, but this is just kind of like you in general. What would you say is a quirk? Like something a little quirky about your personality that like we or friends, family, coworkers, somebody calls you out for it, but it's who you are.
I don't know if this is a quirk, but what I get called out for a lot is my soft speech.
But by the way, we have your microphone gain about double the level of mine at the time of this recording, so we're all good.
I like to view it as a more engaging way to relate to people, because you have to lean closer to talk. And I think that gives me some like positive, I'm like, oh, they're like leaning, they're listening to me. No, other quirks, butterflies, birds freak me out.
Oh, birds too? I didn't know you had the Lori gene.
It's not all birds. I don't like the unpredictable flying near my head. And in the city full of pigeons, that is a problem. But butterflies, as you've talked about before with Costa Rica, that will be in my brain forever.
I think that goes all the way back to the first Thanksgiving special with Dad, where I asked him about favorite family trips, and he brought up Costa Rica. And for anybody who's not familiar, that wherever we stayed, like the first leg of our Costa Rica trip, there was a butterfly garden. And so we went in there. It was like us and maybe Mom and Dad and Mindy. I was with you. Like, it is unsettling, the unpredictable floating of the butterflies, but you were acting like that was one of the least favorite days of your life. Being attacked, quote unquote, by butterflies. That's hilarious. But I didn't know about birds. So birds, you're not a fan either?
Some birds. Yeah, it depends.
I think that might be an NYC thing too, because like when I lived there, the amount of times that you almost, like a pigeon seems like it's going to take your head off, and they never hit you, but well, hopefully. But
I think also being taller, I feel like I'm closer to getting hit than some people that don't have to worry about it.
You're like a bird, Nelly Furtado.
The other quirk, I think I always like to know which like cardinal direction I'm facing or moving in.
I love how you use the name of a bird in that description.
Like I was never a big like hiker, or like I wasn't out navigating in the wilderness, but I just like to know like which direction I'm going. And even besides the like Google Maps or whatever I'm using, like it's just like helps me to know which direction. Just I don't know if it's like a instinctual thing of like in case something goes wrong to know like which way to go, but it seems kind of outdated at this point. But I don't know.
Yeah, well, thankfully there's a lot of technology these days, aka smartphones and Google Maps, that tells you which way you're looking, which way your ray on Google Maps is facing. All right, how about pet peeves? This could literally be about anything. What's a pet peeve that grinds your gears, as Peter Griffin says?
The slow walkers on the sidewalk that
shuffle. You sound like a Hinge profile.
Who shuffle from side to side and can't walk in one direction. That irks me. people on the subway who have really big bags that they wear on their back, so you can't get by them.
You were saying really big backs. I was
no,
that was just mean.
Large bags. I don't know. I try to be mindful of what's happening around me, and some people are not the same.
All right, and then weird talents. This I call them weird talents, but I really think of it as like a party trick. Like, what's something that you have a knack for, like you're really good at, but really it's like a pretty minor thing in the scheme of life?
I taught myself how to make balloon animals a couple years ago.
What? Where? How is this the first time I'm hearing about it?
It was actually in residency.
Oh my God.
We do like a retreat.
I knew you guys did important things.
We did a retreat and you were supposed to like come with, it's a talent show. And I was like, I don't have a talent. I literally have no talent. And I Googled like 20 easy skills to learn. And magician was higher up, but balloon animal seemed feasible. So I watched a few videos and I was able to make like a swan, a dog, a slightly smaller dog,
slightly larger swan,
a larger, and I think I could make like 4 things, and I did it for the talent show. But in my closet in my apartment now, I still have some balloons and the pump. I just haven't done it in a while. I don't know if this is considered a talent as much as, I guess we're talking about addiction again. I love Survivor.
Yeah.
And I can watch any show, any episode of any season whenever, and I don't get tired of watching it. I will happily, I've watched all 40, now they're in the 47th season. I've seen every episode, most twice, some 3 times. And I haven't hit a wall yet. I can just keep watching it whenever.
That's impressive. Survivor of the fittest. I still can't get over the balloon animals thing. That's gonna come in handy down the line. You never know. All right, let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
Ready.
All right, let's get wild. So this is more of like a Survivor physical competition. I've arranged for 14 balloons to be delivered. And you're going to have... No, I'm just kidding. No, we've talked about NYC a lot. You've now lived in 3 different parts of the city. So you lived in kind of Hell's Kitchen / Columbus Circle area. You lived in East Village. You've lived in Murray Hill or Midtown East area. Just like first thing that comes to your mind, like which of those 3 is your favorite region? I told you we were blowing up balloons.
Okay. Well, that's a tough question. This is quick fire. Okay.
No, take 10
All
minutes.
right.
Go
Favorite part to live, I would say the Midtown East Murray Hill area. I think it's more livable. There is better food in East Village and West Village, but yes.
I think my favorite answer of that was... No,
that's a tough question. Every
totally agree.
neighborhood, I feel like every neighborhood in Manhattan has something about it that could pull you. But I think maybe it just depends on where you are in your life or you know what you're looking for the most. And East Village is a little too hectic for me. But
you hinted at, or I guess we thoroughly covered again the butterfly Costa Rica story earlier. But what we didn't really touch on in your upbringing in your college era was that like you did some amazing trips, and then we kind of made family trips around it. So like you had some, I don't know if you call them medical internships or whatever you call it, but like you had a thing in Costa Rica that we made that awesome Costa Rica trip around. We didn't get to Peru, but you did a Peru thing too. Mm-hmm. And then you also did a thing in Germany, and we made a Germany and Europe trip around that. Other than the butterflies, which I know you still think about, haunts you every night before bed. What is your favorite memory from like either one of those or just overall like a family trip?
The most... a positive memory would be so in Germany, I met you guys. So I was at a music festival in the hills of Salzburg, Austria.
This sounds like the start of The Sound of Music.
Yeah. I didn't shower for over 3 days because I think I didn't bring a towel or something. For some reason, I didn't shower at the music festival.
That's a slightly younger Andrew.
And I was so dirty, and like my hair was just like so like caked like together. And I got to Munich, where you all were. My first shower there was my most positive memory in the hotel. Like it
Showers,
that was amazing. And to kind of end, because I had already been living in Germany for a couple months at that point, and so I was done with my like little internship I was doing, and you guys were the tail end of that trip, and so to have like a family trip at the end was just like awesome. But I took like this small bus from Austria to you guys, and like it was just gross, and I was like, I can't wait to get out of here.
You still smell, by the way, but your hair looks great though. All right. Anybody who knows you closely knows that you're allergic to peanut butter or peanuts. All the above. If you didn't have that allergy, what's one peanut butter related thing that you would love to try?
I mean, everyone talks just about one of those giant Reese's cups.
Oh, the big cups?
Yeah, a big cup.
Those things are thick with 3 Qs.
But with tree nuts also, because I'm allergic to those, like just being able to have pesto and not worry about the pine nut in it, like whenever I want, that would be amazing.
Would this be a bad time to tell you we're having pesto right after? No, just kidding. All right. Dana will love this one. One of our favorite memories from our wedding was your best man speech. And we've probably watched it. I mean, at the time of this recording, it was recently our anniversary again, but crazy. Every year how that happens. But we've probably watched it like 100 times. And again, it was like biased, but I think unbiased too. Like best man speech ever. And from my perspective, it turned into like a roast of me, which was pretty funny, but it was amazing. But no, you were the best. You did the long skinny arms dance. You did everything. You called out my fashion sense, which has improved a lot, maybe a little bit. No, all credit goes to Dana. But what advice do you have for anybody like planning a best man or maid of honor, like a speech like that at a huge life moment in front of everybody? Like, what do you think? Besides roasting me, what do you think like worked well leading up to that?
I'll admit I didn't write it until the day before.
Wow. But I have to call this out. So Dana, who's here with us for this recording, I haven't seen her mouth drop like that since Emmy and Karen and Scott were here and surprised her for when we got engaged and made this surprise visit here. So anyway.
Well, I think for me, going to weddings and friends' weddings and you hear a lot of speeches, a lot of them are just adequate. And I just wanted one that was a little spicier and just to be a little more of a roast is what it was. Like I wanted there to be more humor in it, but kind of like intertwined with more emotional things. And I think also for me, like I was expecting the maid of honor speech also was going to be more emotional and sweeter,
which Emmy rocked it.
Yeah,
as well,
it was fantastic.
It was awesome. Yeah.
But I wanted like a different energy, and I wanted to also go with what I know better, which I think is some humor. We'll see. I might be biased there, but
no, it was amazing.
Yeah, so that was what I was thinking. Like I kind of wanted to just, and it's not. I put it down on paper the day before. I had been thinking about it for weeks and weeks, but.
And then you promptly threw it on the ground as part of your your whole thing. No, Dan and I still talk about how that was like we view it as like a gift you did for us. Like that was amazing, and I still like I was crying, laughing at the same time. It was amazing, and I'm infinitely faster and more fashionable, and my hair is takes less time to put together. No, it was awesome. So, all right, last one. What is a lesson from mom and or dad that they just kind of taught us about life in general that still sticks with you today?
They taught a lot, but one that I've been appreciating more recently is to just see things and see the world. We grew up traveling a lot, mostly in the Caribbean and around the US, but yeah, like don't be afraid to go out of your comfort zone and do an experience that is different.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's awesome. Like, I mean, they did such a good job with us, and we got to see so many things, and they built such like a solid like. I mean, going back to what you were saying at the start about like being confident and like high self-esteem and that like opportunities that they supported us doing, like just amazing. So, obviously big shout out to mom and dad. But Dr. Andrew Branstetter, I believe that pretty much brings us to the end. Thank you so much for doing this. Highly requested, but I know it's tough with your schedule. It's tough with like the things we can talk about or can't talk about with HIPAA. And like, thank you so much for doing this. And I'm going to get sappy for a moment. I always think about how like I'm equally like as proud of you as I am like inspired by you and like look up to you. I don't know if that's looking up or like physically looking up because you're taller, but no, you just like, I'm just so proud of you. Like you've kind of like, you figured out you wanted to do something in the medical space and you've like knocked it out of the absolute park. And obviously even going back to like growing up, like your grades and everything in there is awesome, and sports and you're just a hell of a dude. You're a hell of a stallion. And so it's always kind of funny because like you're my little brother, but I look up to you. And so this was really, really special. An awful segue, but where's the best place to, if somebody wants to connect with you, obviously they can check out your Instagram and your 14 million followers. But if somebody wants to connect with you at all, like, would it be to your Instagram or not at all? Is there anywhere if people also we can just edit this out if you don't want?
The Instagram's fine. I get notifications. I just don't post very often.
What's your handle?
It's very original. It's Andrew Branstetter.
Okay.
Alternatively, you can Venmo me money, and then I will respond to you as a thank you.
Perfect. And Venmo is no, I'm just kidding. No. Okay, awesome. Thanks again. Instagram, you can go into an ER unit with an ailment and meet them in person. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But unless you need it. But last thing, final thoughts. It could be a quote, words to live by. It could be your original lyrics to your Long Skinny Arms dance. Whatever you want, send us home here. And oh, by the way, as Josh Peck said, love you, brother. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Take a breather. To just take a step back and breathe and think about your next actions. Because that's what I do at work.
Dr. Skinny Arms. First name long. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing your wild story, for being the best brother in the world. And thank you, wild listeners, for tuning in to another episode. If you want to hear more wild stories like this one, make sure to follow the Wild Business Growth Podcast on your favorite podcast app. You can check out the previous Thanksgiving family or family business episodes there from previous years. I'm just going to see how many times I can say previous. And make sure to subscribe on YouTube for the video versions. YouTube is at Max Branstetter. You can also find us on Good Pods. And for any help with podcast production, you can learn more at maxpodcasting.com. And sign up for the Podcasting to the Max newsletter. That is short and sweet, typically every Thursday, where podcasting meets entrepreneurship and the worst puns Andrew has ever heard. That's for sure. You can sign up at maxpodcasting.com/newsletter. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!